people in that way ever again. That is good, I suppose. She learned her lesson and hopefully doesn't do it again. The hormone imbalance turned out to be caused by one of my medications. I am off that med now so I can have kids. Woo! You see, happy endings all around. Heck yes. Edit. Thank you for helping me with dyslaxative typos, and thank you for all your support. Oh, I can relate to that one. Not me, like, reading story-based videos and, like, sometimes just getting random words completely wrong. Couldn't be me. Cannot relate. Next story, please. Hopefully, he was so traumatized, he will never look at butts the same way again. That is, That's a wild title. This could be like a pop song. When I was a poor, recent graduate of an art school, I used to live in a fairly rough part of Philadelphia. Semi-relevant was that part of my town is well known for delicious Vietnamese food, and I haven't yet realized I am gluten intolerant. Anyway, for some reason my boyfriend at the time and I were eating bami, Vietnamese hoagies, off the hood of his car and talking. No clue why we didn't sit at a table or a stoop, but that part is semi-irrelevant. Just know that I'm leaned up against the Jeep eating and probably had my butt jutted out a bit towards the sidewalk. Anyway, this guy walks up and starts looking me up and down and mumbling about what a fine-looking big butt it is, and proceeds to accidentally brush his hands on my butt as he walks by. I was pissed, but tried to brush it off and not start poo because it's Philly and you never know who has a gun and mental health issues. But then this man proceeds to turn around at the end of the block and starts walking back, licking his lips the whole way, looking for seconds. At the same moment, my recently consumed giant amount of bread was starting to hit my gut and making things rumble. And my devilish plan of opportunity began to unfold. I waited until this guy was like 6 inches away and about to brush by me again, and I just let the nastiest, stinkiest fart of justice rip right onto him. Like I swear I saw it blow his hair back. He shrieked, "Ew! You nasty birch!" and ran away, looking like he had just seen a ghost while I cackled manically. Oh yeah, maybe he won't harass random people on the street ever again. You never know when you get hit by the stink cloud of justice. Yes, indeed. That is absolutely wild, though. Can you imagine that? Not only harassing once or twice, but a third time when they turn back and come back around. That is absolutely insane. The audacity of some people. You're not just talking about random catcalling, you know, someone driving in a car and being like, "Yeah, girl, you poo with that butt." It's like, no, now it's like literally coming back around a second time. The audacity. He really got what he was asking for, didn't he? Be nice to your pharmacist. I lived in an area with lots of old folks. One day, I had to take my kid to pick up a prescription for her mom. As it happens, it must have been a busy day for the pharmacy. There was a pretty long line, and I kept the kid in the shopping cart to do a few laps to get some groceries and come back. Line is still pretty long, but I decide better just wait it out. I am behind this older couple, just trying to keep my toddler entertained. And as I do, I notice the woman force her way to the front of the line from behind me. I have been waiting for a while, 10 to 15 minutes, moved up to a few places already, and was supposed to be next. She makes it to the window and leans in and against the plexiglass with her hand over the divider and starts snapping her fingers. This must be what fish in restaurants see. Give me my prescription.
What the heck is taking so long? I've been in line forever.
False. The pharmacist, who is clearly frazzled and looking for somebody who's been more patient, prescription, turns and says, "I'll be right with you."
Well, I'm here now. I need my darn...
Insert obscure drug name.
I was supposed to take it last night.
Darn. Sounds like you should have planned better. Pharmacist assures her she will be right there to help her. My kid and I stop from what we're doing and watch as the woman turns from red to purple, waiting on bated breath for the unwarranted reaction that is sure to come. Yeah, these kind of situations, just like waiting for a kettle to boil, isn't it?
Somebody needs to get the frick over and help me. I need my darn drugs. This incompetent girl can't do her job.
The woman who is working the drive-thru window turns, asks the car to wait a moment. Mind you, the driver, though, was just as long of a line, hence why I went inside in the first place. She comes over, looking equally as frazzled as the other pharmacist. Calmly asks the lady to step to the next window. Lady sighs, pushes her cart over, and they begin going through the standard questions. The cashier leaves to go to her computer to look it up. All while the other girl is still trying to help the first couple. Old angry lady keeps ranting about how unacceptable this is, and
this never used to happen.
What do you mean, Lines didn't used to happen.
This generation is lazy and inconsiderate.
Speaking to nobody in particular, but I was listening. The drive-thru lady comes back. Sorry, ma'am, we haven't received the order from the doctor. Until we get the prescription, we can't fill it. I'd be happy to call them when I can to try to expedite that. Or you can call and see if they can send it over. The lady screams,
I am not going anywhere until I get my frickin' pills.
All right, I will call them when I am able. She walks away. Now it's my turn at the register. I had worked customer service for years and still do as a server. Don't be rude, pretty easy rule. I push my cart up. Look at the poor frazzled young girl behind the counter, turn to the angry woman. Wow, sounds like it's a pretty important prescription.
Yes, it is. I need it yesterday. I could have taken it already, but...
I interrupt her. Pretty insane to me you're being so terrible to the people who are going to fill a bottle with what could be your life-saving medication. I know I wouldn't be that brave. The look on her face. I turn to the cashier and say very plainly, wow, she is terrible. I turn and she storms off. I pick up the prescription and carry on with my day. Good rule of thumb, be polite to the people who give you things you intend to ingest. I'm not saying it was gold by any means, but the quiet thank you from the cashier had me floating for the rest of the day. This is one thing that really gets me about these sort of entitled people. They trust strangers to not look for payback way too much. I saw this in a recent viral video where some old dude is blocking a parking space and gets behind a car that's already backing up. And I'm like, you're trusting random drivers way too much. I mean, most people are not going to mess with you if you literally sit down in a parking lot. They're not going to bother. They just want to go about their day. So squeakiest wheel gets the grease, I suppose. But if you pick that crappy driver, 1 in 100, that is drunk or gets stung by a bee or just doesn't see you, are you really trusting a stranger that much? Their car is much harder and heavier than your body. And same thing goes here, or same thing goes for servers. Do you really trust to go through life and be a butthole to everyone and not a single server is gonna spit in your food? You know? They trust that strangers won't give them petty payback way too much, and they trust way too much random drivers and stuff, even putting themselves in danger because of it. I never understood that sort of entitlement. It's like a sense of immortality almost. It's so weird. Wanna use your religion to shame me for having my time of the month? I will use it right back against you. I, F17, had this story happen some time ago. Around my sophomore or second year of high school. I was around 14 or 15 at the time, and I was just eating lunch with a few friends in one of the, what our school calls, breakout rooms. We were chilling and having a good time, and I remembered I had to go change my pad since I was on my period that week. However, there is, or was a kid a grade below me, who we'll just call Jay. Jay is known for being a butthole, and while he had or has his decent moments, 90% of the time he tries to shove him being a Christian down everybody's throat, even though his actions are far from Christian-like. It's funny how that do be the case sometimes, isn't it? Throws racial slurs. You know that Bible quote when Jesus said, "Thou shalt call thy fellow people as many slurs as possible"? That's how you end up in heaven, baby. Oh, yes, indeed. Is loud and disruptive during class, disrespectful toward teachers and other students, and outright made fun of one of my friends once because they were Muslim and made all the stereotypical jokes you can imagine surrounding the religion. But in this particular instance, Jay saw me take out my pad and proceeded to give me a few dirty looks. I asked if there was a problem, and he made a remark along the lines of, "Don't freaking touch me!" According to him, the Old Testament in the Bible claims that when a woman is on her time of the month, if she touches a man, he will become unclean. I mean, with a mouth like that, it sounds like you're plenty unclean already if you want to go that route, but alright, yo. I rolled my eyes at him and left to go change my pad as he proceeded to go off about, "My period isn't natural," and "I'm disgusting," and even flipped through his Bible to try to find the verse he was talking about and read it out loud to me. He's carrying a little Bible with him to be an insufferable bully about, but try to reference the Bible at why he's justified in being an insufferable bully. Man, he sounds great! Like he was an exorcist trying to expel a demon or some crazy BS. I come back, lightly tease him, and brush it off as we switch classes. However, I came back to the same room for my Spanish class, and sure enough, Jay shared the class with me. I tell my friend, who was also in class with me, what happened, and to my surprise, they actually used to know Jay pretty well, and they actually helped me come up with the revenge idea. Apparently, according to my friend, Jay is so Christian, he believes, or at least used to back when this happened, in the Ouija board stuff so much that he thinks demons or Satan himself will come haunt him down if he even touches one. And although this was kind of a buttholy and petty of us, we felt he deserved it in the moment. I mean, sounds like reasonable payback in my opinion. This is gonna be juicy, isn't it? So after they tell me this about Jay, we decide to get back at him by making a poopy homemade Ouija board out of paper during class. So we poorly scribbled the letters on a page and even did the piece that you put your fingers on out of paper as well. After he comes in the room, we call him over and show him, and even pretend we're playing by moving the piece around the board. And I am not joking. He freaks the frick out. He starts yelling and pleading for us to put it away, saying we're cursing the room with a demonic presence, and even left the room, tattled to the teacher, who didn't do anything about it, until we complied with his request to put it away. He didn't come back in that room for the rest of the period, and to rub it in a little more, I would accidentally brush up against him or poke him once or twice a day for the rest of the time I was on my period hour. I know it was petty, but god darn, it was hilarious to see. Eddie, thank you for the upvotes and award. I really didn't expect this to blow up as much as it did. Grateful to you all. Honestly, sounds like pretty good payback. It sounds like a bully that's just trying to hide behind a belief or something like that to be a poopy person. Sadly, those sort of people exist that will just use something as an excuse to justify their poopy behavior. Surprisingly common, sadly. So turning it against them in this sort of way is very satisfying indeed. It really is. Wedding transphobe crashed a friend's wedding party, so I snap back at her with her own logical flaws. For context, I'm in my 20s and I am an AFAB non-binary gender fluid, but I prefer masculine terms. I am out to everyone in my life, and I was recently the best man of my childhood's best friend's wedding. We've known each other since we were kids and way before I got my binder and started styling my hair in a more gender-neutral way. All that is to say, my friend is a very, very supportive man, and both he and his wife, who is actually bi, almost read it accidentally bi, but not out to anyone except me, my friend, and a few others, knows why I use the women's bathroom despite calling me his best man. But he knows I don't fully identify with that term, and he fully supports me being non-binary and gender fluid. So it was doing the after party, or whatever you call those things. I'm in a poly relationship, so I legally can't get married with my partners, so I don't know anything about weddings. When I meet one of the bridesmaids, she was my friend's wife's sister, and she is transphobic. Which, if her family is anything like her, probably explains why my friend's wife isn't out to anyone in the family, that I know of. Anyway, I had to use the bathroom, and I guess she either followed me in there, or had to go to the bathroom the same time I did. And I walked into the women's bathroom since I have been using that my whole life and was more comfortable using that bathroom. When I exited the stall, she was waiting for me, as I washed my hands and left. She went on a rant about how I should be using the men's room, and we don't need perverts in this women's room. She was loud and clearly trying to draw attention to me and get a crowd to support her. I didn't want to ruin my friend's and his wife's special day, but eventually I got fed up and turned to her and said, "Ma'am, I bleed out of my parts every month. I have used the women's room as long as I can remember. I was born with the same parts as you. So you're telling me I'm perverted for using the bathroom I was assigned at birth, therefore countering your whole argument entirely? Look, if I had a flat chest and more confidence in using which bathroom I wanted, I would use the men's room more often. But I don't want to look at random guys' parts outside of my own partner's parts. Normally, I would curse this birch out for her dumb logic, but there were kids present. She looked at me, dumbfounded, as if she had a moment of realization that not all trans people were born male and looking to invade women's spaces. She gaped like a fish for a moment, and then red-faced and angrily left the room. I apologized to my friend for ruining his day, and he and his wife laughed and said she deserved it. Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? A lot of the people that are so spiteful and hateful don't actually understand the subject that they're hateful towards enough to even get it right. It's like the we can always tell crowd, but the surprising part is that they very often cannot, in fact, tell. And this very much falls in the same category. She had already assumed, like a male to female sort of thing, but that wasn't even accurate. Like, they cannot tell, that's the thing. They're hateful towards something they have heard someone speak about or hyped up in media or something like that, scaremongering and that kind of BS. And then they buy into it too much, But then in situations like this, you realize that they don't actually know what they're even hating. Which, I'm not sure if it makes it better or worse. Maybe slightly better, because it's ignorance means it's like there might be a bit of hope. Maybe? But it's very funny either way. I do hope she left the wedding after that and you got to have a good evening. I am disabled, not visibly, and my response to, "You're too young," is, last time I checked, chronic illness and disabilities don't ask for an ID. I've only had one get rude and said my chronic illness can't be that bad because I'm young. Like, dude, just say you made a mistake. It wouldn't be that big of a deal, but you chose to dig in your heels. I can't let this go. So I told him the day they no longer needed pediatric cancer wings is the day he will be right. Ooh, I mean, yeah, good potential future dreams, I suppose, in one way, like, technically correct, but, like, yeah, it do be like that, though, isn't it? My god, just like, children's hospitals are a thing, fam. Like for starters, come on. Answered a coworker's question and got them to shut up for the rest of the day. Content warning, CSA and other childhood bad stuff mentioned. I used to work on a team where we would support sales locations for a company where needed. This meant I had a lot of different coworkers depending on where I worked that day. Now, I am a trans woman and don't pass 100%, so I often get questions related to that from my coworkers. While I can find some of these questions annoying, mostly when they are questions inappropriate for the workplace. Don't ask your coworkers about their genitals, people. This is the kind of funny thing when it comes to, for example, trans topics and stuff. It will be really weird and inappropriate to ask anyone about their genitals in the workplace. Like, if I go up to like a random person in an office and be like, "Hey, describe your genitals to me," I would be dragged away for like sexual harassment. But for some reason, when it comes to specifically trans people just lose their common sense. It's kind of interesting. I often have no issues answering good faith questions. However, some people don't really seem to think before they ask questions like the ones I mentioned before. Most of the time, I just tell people I am uncomfortable answering those questions. However, one coworker asked a question so freaking stupid the only way I could respond was the truth. One good comeback that comes to mind would just be to turn it around. "Hey, what about your genital? If you describe yours first, what's the shape and diameter and stuff? Describe your genitals first, and I will follow suit." You know, there you go. Maybe then they will realize how ridiculous the question is, you know? Anyway, let's get on with the story, shall we? The question she asked was, "So is the whole trans thing caused by childhood trauma?" This took me a bit off guard because I have been through a lot as a child. I was severely abused in a Catholic Scouts organization from about 6 to 9. Things from physical things and being locked up alone to naughty things. Not really the things I want to think about when dealing with poopy customers all day. So I answered the only way I could think of with the most casual tone I could muster. No, I know a lot of other trans people who didn't go through stuff like that. I did experience that though. Thanks for reminding me. Quietest break I ever had after that. What did she expect as an answer? If the answer is yes, you know, you're gonna get to this whole thing where you're like reminding someone of their trauma and stuff. If the answer is no, it takes you down this weird route where you have just assumed this thing is only caused by like bad stuff. What are you expecting to happen from taking the conversation in this direction? I think the answer is they didn't expect anything because they didn't think ahead of time. Who would have thunk it? If you don't want to let me go to the nurse's office, have fun with my vomit. I think I was 9 or 10 or something when I was in elementary school class and we have a substitute teacher. I was feeling super under the weather, so like any sane person, I asked to go down to the nurse and she gave me a look, saying, "If it was really that bad, you should have stayed home." Which would have been reasonable, except I was on the floor sobbing my eyes out because of how poopy I felt. I mean, that doesn't help. You can also get sick during the day, you know? It's not that you can always tell how crappy you're gonna feel. At some point, it's gonna hit throughout the day, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be when you're still home. This is a wild logic. She wouldn't even let me go to the bathroom because she was worried that I would go to the office just to spite her. I wonder why. Eventually, it got so bad, I vomited all over her fancy shoes. I got sent home with a temperature of 104 degrees and half that class got sick. Good work, substitute teacher. Instead of just sending them to the nurse's office, they could be sent home. You got the whole class sick and got your shoes ruined. What a thing to double down on. Good job. A man shouldn't do the dishes. But just to add before the story, I don't care if this can be called revenge because it was done by an 8-year-old kid. But I'll go with the tag. So, as stated before, this story is about my nephew and it happened when he was 8 years old. Let me tell you all about this kid because he is so darn smart. He is honest and doesn't let anyone lie, even if it's his parents. He has an amazing sense of justice too, so my family has a lot of stories about him. One of our favorite ones is when he came clean about gaming 5 minutes past the stipulated time when he was trying to kill a boss and saying the deserved punishment of taking away 5 minutes of his gaming time the next day was too light because he knew he did that bad thing on purpose even though he knew it was bad. What a little sweetheart! Oh my god, killing boss? Valid though. Absolutely valid. I'm currently grinding through the Elden Ring DLC and I'm getting absolutely smashed. It's a good time. Anyway, my sister is married with a guy that comes from a pretty traditional family. His ILs are a bit of a pain in the butt, if you ask me. They think my sister should be a stay-at-home mom and spend the whole time they're in her house saying that she should quit her job, one she's amazing at, and the boss, FYI. They think it's terrible my sister makes their son, her husband, do laundry, which is just putting the clothes in the laundry machine, mind you. Also, it's not even like the whole cycle, it's just like carrying the stuff to the machine. Yeah, that takes about 2.5 minutes. So one time, during one of the visits, my nephew was going to wash the dishes because it was his day. Back then, he washed the dinner's dishes every 5 days or so, if I'm not mistaken. And mother-in-law jumped on the opportunity to say, "A man shouldn't do the dishes." And my nephew, bless his heart, answered without skipping a beat, "Good thing I'm not a man. I am a boy." Mother-in-law tried to berate my sister for this, but she was so giddy about how smart her boy was that it didn't even bother her. My nephew is now 12, and his sense of justice keeps traumatizing my sister's in-laws. I love this kid. That is so beautiful. Oh my god. And also like the realization, right? Even if you want to go a very practical route about this sort of stuff, most households nowadays, with how expensive rent is, for example, cannot survive on only one income. Like, even if you want to go that route, for most people, it's not even like a pragmatic, viable option in the first place. So, I don't know, very wild opinion to hold in this day and age, to be honest, my god. And also it's up to, like, the family to decide, isn't it? Like, my god, fam. Traumatize me because I am lesbian? Let's see how you handle the same treatment. Okay, so I discovered the suburb thanks to the amazing Click. Oh my god, I've heard about him. He's a very silly boy. Now let's dive into this juicy pile of trauma and revenge. I, 28F, am married to my beautiful wife, 27F. And guess what? Of course my mother has to bug me about it and try to fix me. Oh, she's single and has been through 5 divorces before giving up on dating. Whoo! Yeah, maybe not the person you would look to for relationship advice in general. The track record is questionable to begin with, but also try to like fix someone. They're also like 28. Don't you think they have like, I don't know, figured out a decent chunk of that sort of stuff by now? What do you mean fix? Oh, anyway, I remember vividly when I came out to her about 11 years ago, and she said, "It's just a phase, and you'll grow out of it," which were stupid excuses, obviously. Well, when I first started dating my wife, she was furious and texted me that this is absolutely outrageous. Of course, she would say that. I was used to her abusive or dismissive behavior because she wasn't the best parent growing up. Well, I didn't really mind it, I was expecting that. But what I wasn't expecting is her sitting me down and making me watch naughty VHS tapes and normal naughty films, trying to convince me how good naughties between straight couples can be and how it's what God intended and created a man and a woman for. Okay, isn't this literally though what they used to call, like way back in the day, like decades ago, they had like, what's it called? Like, is it called transition therapy? It's something like that, when they try to like basically cure that were gay. This is literally a thing that happened throughout history. This is wild. This is an absolutely insane thing to do. It's a pretty insane thing to do, you know, no matter the context, but this definitely makes it worse. I was horrified and disgusted at the moment, but then inspiration hit. The sweet, sweet revenge was about to hit hard. I gathered some naughty lesbian VHS tapes and films from my friends, as I didn't own any, and packed them up in an Amazon box. She had ordered something, and I'm pretty sure it's more films since she is addicted. And I mailed them to her. I also hid a note in the bottom of the box saying, "See, this is fun too." Well, she never contacted me again, and thank God she didn't. My wife and I are going to celebrate 7 years together next month. We still laugh about the story to this day. Oh my god, she went no contact about it? Holy crap. Let me force you to watch these adult films that I know you're not into. And someone just like turns it around and be like, "Oh, I'm going no contact. How could you? You know that when someone goes no contact with you for doing the same thing to them that they did, well, reversed to you, I suppose, they kind of admit that what they did was a pretty bad thing, right? Because otherwise they wouldn't go no contact. That is pretty much admitting what they did in the first place was really bad. Because when it happened to them, they literally cut someone up. It might also have to do with just like raging homophobia, to be honest, but it's a pretty like interesting case of irony, is it not? Humans are supposed to be stupid. I graduated from high school this past Friday, so we had a small family gathering to celebrate. My deeply Christian and homophobic grandmother began talking about how,
According to the Bible, humans weren't supposed to be gay, and that is not what God wanted.
She went on and on until my amazing cousin had enough. She said, according to the Bible, humans were supposed to be stupid. That was what God wanted. And clearly you seem to have followed that example. Grandma was quiet for the rest of the night. Oh my god, that is so beautiful and funny. Oh, just turning it right back around. Well, laddies, lasses, and lasses, I do hope you enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed having you hear, you wonderful, beautiful beings. And I will see you again in the very near future. Take care. Well, good evening. Laddies, lasses, and lazzos, welcome to the click. You smell absolutely astounding today, and don't let anyone else tell you otherwise. Now, I may not be a psychomalologist, as you may be surprised to know. I just read memes for a living, but I do have this very scientific concept I would like to propose to my fellow peer reviewers, also other meme people. It's that trauma is actually nostalgia, but just negative. So to try out this scientific hypothesis, I figured we would look through some r/traumatize them back, turn that negative nostalgia around, and weaponize it against your enemies. Enjoy. But being gay is a sin? Well, so is adultery. So I am a 37-year-old gay man with a 79-year-old conservative Christian ex-missionary mother who has had a lot of problems coming to terms with this fact. Fortunately, she loves me enough that she didn't disown me or anything. In fact, she actually came to my wedding. The only issue is that she still made it her mission to tell me it was a sin and bring up those Bible verses as much as she could. So one night after she poked at me one too many times with said verses, I finally had enough. I hated to do it, but when she brought up the subject, I responded by pointing out that her mom was an adulteress for 50 plus years. Actually, that's kind of smart, you know? It's just removing the cherry pickiness and being like, but if this applies to me, then this also applies to you. Oh yes, indeed, it's beautiful how the turntables. You see, her mother divorced her husband due to the fact that he was a drunk. He would spend all his money on booze and tipping the waitresses at the local bar, instead of buying his family food. It was bad enough that the waitresses would actually reach out to my grandmother and gave her the tips he gave them because they knew it was a problem. Oh my god, massive respect to the waitresses for actually doing that. That is absolutely amazing, but Jesus Christ, you know it's bad when the waitresses you are like kind of hitting on and tipping goes behind your back and just gives the money back to your wife. You know you crossed like multiple lines at that point, in multiple dimensions of life. Oh, dear God, man. You see, the Bible clearly states that the only reason for divorce is due to infidelity. Since my grandmother's first husband was never unfaithful, she was never divorced in the eyes of God. Because of this, it means that her second marriage to my grandfather was actually adultery in the eyes of God, making my grandmother an adulteress. Oh. My mother got super defensive and told me, hey, he cheated on her with alcohol, so she was fine to divorce them. I was like, yeah, Mom, nice try. She is still a W word. Okay, I didn't say W word, but I really wanted to. Anyways, my mom didn't talk to me for like 2 days, but when she finally broke the silence, she basically just told me she would never bring up those verses again. Honestly, this is sort of the best case scenario happy ending to these sort of stories. You turn this thing around that they have been using against you for so long, and then they have this like moment of self-reflection that, oh my god, it turned around on me all of a sudden. It wasn't that fun anymore. Oh my god, is this what I have been doing to this other person this whole time? So that sort of stuff can make some people turn around and change how they act when they realize what it's like to actually have them directed towards themselves. It's been nearly a year now, and my life is so much less stressful. I don't end up crying after the majority of my conversations with her anymore. I hate that I had to use my grandmother's memory like that to get my mom to stop, but I will not hesitate to remind her of this if she ever slips back into old habits in the future.
Yeah, people like that are always so conveniently hypocritical, aren't they? Now, this stuff applies because it's about you, but this stuff that would apply to my story and who I am, that doesn't apply at all because a bunch of excuses that aren't actually applicable, so...
It's just kind of funny how that works, isn't it? My dad went on a huge transphobic rant. I told him I am trans because he had me circumcised. Basically, my dad never accepted me for being a transgender woman. That is not my problem, though. I have a happy relationship and a great career. I haven't lived with him in over a decade. Still, he tried to guilt trip me into reconsidering. Anyways, instead of getting mad, I was